All right, so example 5, we're going to graph y equals sine of x minus pi. So I'm going to do my sine table again. And I'm going to graph that one. I'm going to watch the scale. Now what is that pi right there going to do to my graph? Is it horizontal or vertical? Right, it's horizontal because it's in with x. And is it a stretch, a compression, or a shift? Shift because it's being added or subtracted by what? Or which direction, I'm sorry? Horizontal shift. Yeah, it's negative, so it's going to go right. Pi. So what is this going to do to my table? Is it going to affect x or y? And what's it going to do to my x's? Well, do I add or subtract it? Add it. Because remember, x does the opposite, correct? And there's nothing to change my y's. So I'm just going to write my y's down. And then I might have to do a little work on a couple of these. So a couple of them we can get by with just, I think, seeing it. But a couple of them I'll show my work on. So when I add pi, I start with I'm in my x's, and the first one is 0. What's 0 plus pi? And then I have pi over 2 plus pi. Well, let me see. So down here I'm going to do a little work. So what's pi over 2 plus pi? But remember, pi, to get a common denominator, is just 2 pi over 2, right? So what is pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2? 3 pi over 2. And the next one I think we're okay. What's 1 pi plus 1 pi? And then I had 3 pi over 2. And I add pi to it. Well, that's 2 pi over 2, which is 5 pi over 2. And then 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi. All right, and so we can graph these points. And then check. Did it horizontally go to the right pi? It did. Now, can you continue that graph? If I asked you to keep it going, maybe from like negative 4 pi to positive 4 pi? Yeah, find your pattern. If I'm going to go to the right, I'm going to start here on the left, and I'm going to change colors. I'm going to use blue. So I see that I'm here, and it goes up, down, down, up, right? So remember, it's a pattern. So up, down, well, I'm at 4 pi. If I want to go the other way, I would start there on the right side of my pink, and it would go down, up, down. So I'm going to go down, down, and keep going with my pattern. Down, up, down, up, and then just connect them. And so my blue and my pink together there would be the graph of my equation from negative 4 pi to positive 4 pi. So now let's look at 5b. It's cosine. So I'm going to remember my table. And so I can graph that. And what do I think that pi is going to do to my graph this time?
Go to the left.
Yeah, it's horizontal shift. Good. Left, how many?
Pi.
And so what would that do in my table? Yeah, it'd be x minus pi. And so my y's aren't going to change, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite them. And then I'm going to subtract pi from all of my x's. So what is 0 minus pi?
Negative pi.
And what is pi over 2 minus pi, which is 2 pi over 2? Negative pi over 2. And then what is pi minus pi? And what is 3 pi over 2 minus pi, which is 2 pi over 2? Good. And then what is 2 pi minus pi? And so I can graph my new points there. And then look at it. Does it appear that we horizontally moved our graph to the left pi? Yes. And so there's our graphs.